Thank you so much to the UNFCU Foundation panel on accelerating gender equality through financial inclusion. We're really so thrilled after years of being hybrid and virtual that we're actually going to be able to be in community in a room together. So really we appreciate everyone coming in and joining us here. We're really thrilled to be celebrating the 68th Commission on the Status of Women, or CSW. My name is Ema Gordon. I have the honor of serving as the Executive Director of the UNFCU Foundation, and I also duly lead the Global Impact and Inclusion Team at the United Nations Federal Credit Union, UNFCU. And I just want to welcome all of you. We're really thrilled today and are happy and excited to welcome our panelists who are also joining us today. I'm excited to be your moderator for today's panel. Before we begin our conversation, if you don't mind, I'd like to just first give you greetings from our board chair and our overall champion, Pamela Agnon, who's not here today, who couldn't be here with us, but she definitely sends her greetings. I also wanted to thank my colleague, Elizabeth Philippe, who helped to organize this panel, as well as Tanya Sukari. And if you're here from UNFCU, can you just wave your hand? There are a few colleagues in the room. Great. Thank you so much. And I know that we'll hear from others today. A little bit about the UNFCU Foundation. We were founded in 2015 by UNFCU, the credit union. The credit union has been around for about 75 years and really serves primarily UN staff and members around the world. The UNFCU Foundation is a nonprofit dedicated to sustaining the path out of poverty for women and for youth. Based here in New York, but we do fund partners globally. More than half of our portfolio funds really incredible global partners who are primarily on the African continent, but several folks who are also funding important work in different parts of the world. Earlier this year, we were proud to announce our support for 19 partners for 2024. But since our inception, we've been able, through our programs, to impact the lives of more than 70,000 women and youth. So we're really excited about that. But today is not about us. Certainly it is about our work and the work that we're able to work to partner in support of these incredible organizations. But we are here to talk about gender equality through financial inclusion. Just a bit before I turn it over to the panel, financial inclusion really in its broadest sense, right, is about the heart of the work that we do here at the foundation. And we, I'm sure all of you were focused this week in sessions that were talking, as we are, about the collective paths that we are taking to the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs. And for the foundation, we focus, I would say boldly, on SDG number 1, right, to end poverty. But that doesn't detract from our commitment to the other SDGs, which we know are all connected, particularly in women's lives. And so gender equality and quality education, decent work, and economic growth are amongst those that we'll talk about today and amongst our commitments. And so we're really excited to bring you a panel of incredible women leaders here today who will talk with me about this important topic of building long-term financial inclusion and how one creates specific strategies, not just here in the US, but also globally. One of the most exciting things about our portfolio is that we really see organizations who are in Kenya or Uganda, Guatemala, or the US, or Nigeria that are working similarly across those borders with similar strategies and really making progress there. Before I introduce the panel, I think one of the questions that we really asked ourselves today is, what happens to economic inequality when women are not full economic participants in our societies? Right? We must continue to ask ourselves that. We know from the data that women represent the majority of the world's poor. Unfortunately, that continues to be the truth. We know, according to the World Bank, that around 2.4 billion women of working age are not afforded equal economic opportunity. 178 countries maintain legal barriers that prevent their full economic participation. And in 86 countries, women still face some form of job discrimination or restriction, and 95 countries do not guarantee equal pay for equal work. So the situation continues to be dire and critical and urgent. Unfortunately, women are overrepresented among the extreme poor and are defined as those living on less than, many are defined as those living on less than $2 per day. We often earn less than men for similar work, and are more likely to be employed in the informal and lower paying sectors, which continues to increase disparities in access to education, healthcare, the impact of disaster or conflict, on and on. But also, let's think about the missed opportunity and the cost to society when women are not full economic participants. Inequality does come at a cost. So not only to women and their future generations, but also on the community level, on the larger societal level, we can see lower economic growth and lower productivity, undercounted contributions of underpaid or unpaid work, social costs that last for generation after generation, and most importantly, missed opportunities, right, for innovation and productivity and economic growth. So lest we should feel hopeless, let's not do that. We should not. The work that all of you, I'm sure, are doing in this room, the work that we here on the panel are doing, the work that our partners who are not on the panel but are in this room or will hear us on video are doing, are all important and indicators of what can be done to turn the tide that we're talking about. And so our partners today are going to discuss organizational, but also this collective movement to correct these disparities, to provide solutions for individuals, but also to help women build economic agency in community where women build power, to advance economic and social justice and to fight against injustice. I want to give a special shout out. Some of our foundation partners are in this room. If you're a foundation partner, please raise your hand. Thank you. See you. So we're looking forward to really dynamic conversation, and after our panel, we'll invite you to share some of your ideas, your questions. We'll try to get to as many as we can during the moderated Q&A, as many as our time permits, and sorry we're a little late getting into the room. Some of the questions that we talked about as we were preparing for today's conversation is how do we really ensure that women are at the center of organizational short and long-term strategies for upward mobility? I'm going to date myself by saying that in the mid-90s, I walked around here as an intern, really carrying the handbag. Like that's what you do as an intern, and you're sort of following around. And we had those conversations in the 90s. And I remember thinking, wow, I know we can change this, and I know we can turn the tide. And it's okay that it's not the 90s, and we're still talking about that. But I know that progress has been made, and I believe that, and I want to hear more about that today. So some of the conversations are, what partnerships are critical? As we take on this work? What challenges and headwinds arise from us? Do we need to connect with local governments? What roles do they play, for example? And how do we work with men as advocates for change and for progress? And what's ahead, in terms of what we're excited about? So with that, I want to welcome our panel. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'll first say thank you to the Global Fund for Women, who's here with us, who's dedicated to empowering widows. You'll hear Lena talk more about their work with widows and female heads of households to really help overcome poverty through skill-based training, job creation, microfinance, et cetera. The Global Fund for Widows, earned the United Nations Economic and Social Council accreditation and has been advocating for widows' economic and legal rights on a global scale. We've partnered with the Global Fund for Widows to support its promotion of widows' savings and loan associations, or WISALAs, which I can't wait to hear more about, and helping women to really fund and create their own banks. Next, we'll hear from our partners at the United Nations Populations Fund, otherwise known as UNFPA, which is the Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency. UNFPA's mission is to deliver a world where every pregnancy is wanted, every childbirth is safe, and every young person is free of HIV and AIDS. And every girl and young woman is treated with dignity and respect. The foundation is a proud supporter of UNFPA's work, particularly its work with fistula survivors in Nigeria, and Mary Rosa will tell us more about that. And then we'll welcome Sanctuary for Families, New York's largest nonprofit provider of wraparound services exclusively for survivors of domestic violence, sex trafficking, and related forms of gender-based violence. We work with Sanctuary's Economic Empowerment Program, which Sarah leads, and she'll tell us more about. And the Economic Empowerment Program is the only intensive living wage career training program specifically for abuse survivors, and we're really proud of our partnership. So Elena, I'll start with you. I'll ask all the panelists to introduce themselves individually. Can you introduce yourself and tell us more about the Global Fund for for Widows. Sorry about that. And I know you have a wonderful video to share with us. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Ima. First of all, thank you for having me in this panel. And I have to say, from the Global Fund for Widows, we're very excited about our partnership. I'm very grateful for the support that UNFPU has given to the widows in Kenya. So Global Fund for Widows is a global organization that works to support widows and female-headed households. We do so through training, through legal advocacy, legal training, and also through financial empowerment. I'm going to give way to this little video that we have prepared, and then I can give you a bit more of information of what we do.
Global Fund for Widows, we have spent the last 15 years to economically and legally empower widows. We invented a small microbank called the Widows Savings and Loan Association. We have been able to build 191 microbanks around the world, but our work doesn't end there. We have been advocating at the United Nations, U.S. Congress, and even the House of Commons to change laws to protect the rights of widows.
Now take action on draft resolution A/76/L40 entitled Addressing the Situation of Widows.
So join us.
Egypt,
in Kenya,
Tanzania.
welcome.
And thank you.
Thank you. So you can see part of our team. I wish they would be the ones able to give this presentation, but they weren't able to travel here, so I'll do my best to represent them. I'm guessing one of the major questions here is, why widows? Why do we want to work with widows? And what are the particular challenges that widows face around the world? So there's more than 300 million widows in the world, and we know that this is a low estimation. We know that there are many more that are not counted. I think it's important to talk about the definition of widow, or the type of women beneficiaries that we work with. We work with de facto widows, who are women whose husband has deceased. Many of them maybe are not legal widows, as in many of the countries that we operate, marriages are not registered. So women don't have their marriage registration, and they don't have the death certificate for their husbands. So legally, they're not considered widowed, but they are. We also work with functional or half widows. These are women whose husbands have disappeared. This could be voluntarily or involuntarily. We see in a lot of conflict settings, men disappear, but the women don't know if they are dead, if they're in prison somewhere. They don't even know where they are, or if they're dead or alive. Here again, the widows won't have a death certificate, will not be categorized as widows, but still are de facto widows and functional widows. We also work with forced married widows, and child widows. This would be women who maybe had fled a forced marriage, and also girls who are married very young to men who are older than them, and when the husband dies, they're left by themselves, taking care of the kids, and they're still children themselves. We've identified 3 sets of human rights violations or challenges that affect widows in particular. And these would be discrimination, disinheritance, and harmful traditional practices. When we talk about discrimination, we talk about mandated and culturally accepted discrimination against widows. Widows in many countries don't have they can't access any kind of social protection, they can't access justice, and they're left aside. When we talk about disinheritance, as I was saying, there's many widows that don't even have a death certificate or don't have a marriage certificate. It's very difficult for them to prove that they were married. And even if there are protections in national protections that support women in inheritance, like getting the inheritance from their husband, we see that customary law and cultural law doesn't allow women to inherit property very often. So we see that women are left, that the property goes to their in-laws, and they have to decide whether they marry someone in their family or stay with their in-laws, or if they leave their home, leave their property, and don't have any source of income or any livelihood. So many of the women we work with are destitute, have no property, have no home, and they don't have any means to provide for their children. We also identify harmful traditional practices. These are culturally mandated practices that widows face. They involve cleansing rituals, sexual violence, lack of freedom of movement, and several different violence that are gender-based violence and sexual violence. So what does Global Fund for Widows do to try to help these women? So far, we've empowered more than 29,000 widows around the world. We're in Egypt, India, Kenya, Cameroon, Nigeria, Malawi, Tanzania, Ukraine. But I'm going to focus a little bit more on the Kenya project because it's what we're partnering for. So the way we work with widows is by providing financial empowerment, legal empowerment, and also now we're starting with mental health support. For the financial empowerment, you'll see the WISALAs, the Widow Savings and Loan Association that we've created. We have 129 WISALAs in Kenya. It's our biggest WISALA program there, and we're helping 3,475 widows through this program. The WISALAs are microbanks that are owned and operated by the widows themselves. We support them by providing them with financial literacy training, with business management training, and with bookkeeping. We just help them on creating their own businesses and how to do it. These WISALAs are owned by 25 widows that have equal partnership and equal ownership of the bank. Global Fund for Widows boosts their bank, so we ask them to save around 33% of what would be necessary to launch a microenterprise in their country. When we're talking about a microenterprise, we're talking about buying some chickens, some cows, buying material to open their small saloon for hair in their home, so very micro. And what Global Fund for Widows does is boost the bank by 2 for 1. So for every dollar that they put in the bank, we would put 2. This allows for them to have a bigger capital within their bank and to take bigger loans. So what we have seen is that there's this multiplying effect where widows take the loans, pay back with interest, but their interest stays in the bank. We don't take any interest from their bank. It's owned and operated by them. So as they take more loans and as they pay their interest, the amount in the bank grows, and therefore the amount that they have to take in loans grows too, so their businesses grow. We have amazing results. Our latest program in Kenya, we've seen there's more than a 5,000% increase in their average monthly income. And this is only in 1 year. As long as they keep in the WISALA, that would even grow. We've seen that there's a 733% increase in their average savings, monthly savings. So we can see that there's this financial impact. At the same time, we focus on the legal support, right? Most of the women we work with, they didn't even know that they had rights. They didn't even know that they could inherit. They didn't even know that they could say no to these harmful practices that they've been subject to. So we have a paralegal training. We train them on their legal rights under their constitution in each of their countries, and we have a ceremony where we graduate them into paralegals. Now they're the paralegals for their community, and every woman that needs their support in their community will come to them because they've been publicly announced as the paralegals. At the same time, we advocate for changes in laws and changes in culture. We work a lot with the local chiefs, local leaders, so that there's a buy-in from the leaders and the community. And a new aspect that we're adding to the program is the mental health aspect. So we're developing now, and it's going to start in a couple of months. We found, most of the widows we work with have suffered trauma, have been disinherited, so there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of stress, anger. So we're providing these mental health group trainings so that we can help them have a better state of mind so that they can have better businesses and they can work with their children better. I'm going to leave it here because the time is limited, but happy to reply to any question.
Thank you, Elena. I mean, what an amazing, thank you. there's so many things about this model that I love. I mean, before I turn it over to Maria Rosa, I think first teaching us so much more about how to work with widows and the importance of working with widows as a particular group. But I love the comprehensive approach of this, really investing and putting the money in women's hands and trusting that women know what to do with that money, but also teaching women legal rights, which is so empowering. Thank you so much for explaining that with us. And next, we'll turn to Maria Rosa. Maria Rosa, thank you so much for describing the work that UNFPA does, particularly in Nigeria and other places. I'll turn it to you.
Thank you. Yes, now you can hear me. Thank you so much, and thank you for having us. This is a sort of, let's say, recurring, very happy tradition that we have during the CSW with UNFCU. Maria Rosa Cutillo, I'm the chief of the Strategic Partnerships Office at the United Nations Population Fund. We basically deal with the private partners of the organization. This includes foundations, corporations, civil society, so a large platform of partners that support our three transformative results: zero unmet need for family planning, zero preventable maternal deaths, zero harmful practices, and gender-based violence. So partnerships like the one with UNFCU are key for us because they allow us to address our programs. They allow us to really make an impact in communities through a holistic approach. And we will talk about that a little bit later around the global campaign to end fistula. And I would like to ask you if we know what obstetric fistula is, to raise your hand if we know. Thank you. You know, with my colleagues and my colleagues from the technical division here, we always ask this question because, unfortunately, we don't speak enough about this. This is a tragedy that hits almost 500,000 girls and women in the world. And unfortunately, it's still a hidden tragedy. And together with UNFCU, we're trying to bring the spotlight on this strategy. So I have a short video from Nigeria, which maybe we can showcase now.
In Adamawa State, UNFPA with funding from UNFCU Foundation has complemented the state government fistula treatment efforts by offering rehabilitation and reintegration support to women and girls in the state since 2016. Obstetric fistula is an abnormal opening between the vagina, bladder, and orectum, often caused by prolonged obstructed labor and is marked by incontinence of urine, feces, or both. Even after successful surgical repair, women continue to suffer from shame, rejection, depression, isolation, stigma, trauma, and disgrace from their family and community.
The empowerment given to the vesicovaginal fistula victims or patients is strategic. Strategic in the sense that there are people that have had health challenge that has incapacitated them in terms of social life. They don't mingle with people. Their health condition is worsened because of the mess they carry around, and they are prone to infections.
My name is Walida Muhammad. I live in Jambutu, Jimeta, Yola. I started leaking urine when I was 14 years old. I delivered my baby via surgery when I started leaking urine. I felt like no one cared about me, that I became depressed. I was denied the chance to take care of my 1-month-old baby because of the ill condition I was in that time. It was my in-laws who took the baby away from me and asked me to go back to my parents' house. It hurts me the most. That's because of it. I was also denied going to school. I could see all my siblings going to school and I had to stay home. I was lucky that the UNFPA came to my rescue by providing free treatment. And when I got back to my feet, I was taught how to make a living with a huge contribution to support us in a way that we have never expected. I feel much better now, as if I have never been sick before. I was later trained to be a tailor and have a sewing machine. That became my business. I now pay my child's school fees from my earnings and also give my husband some helping hands in his day-to-day activities. All thanks to Allah that I got all this opportunity from UNFPA and UNFCU Foundation. I would be very happy if UNFPA helps with my education. My forever one big dream is to continue my studies.
The empowerment given to these victims of fistula has an impact on the economy of the state and the nation at large. Because when a woman is empowered, her family is empowered, her community is empowered, and the whole state and country is empowered.
Thank you. We thought that rather than words, it was more important for you to hear this story, no? But as you heard, this is the result. The root of the problem is a holistic root. There are many variables coming together. There's discrimination. There's social and economic inequalities. There's lack of engagement by infrastructures and governments to take action against this against this tragedy. So this is something that we're trying to address together, also through this program with UNFCU. And the type of approach we have is at the same time holistic. No? As Walda was mentioning in the video, it's not only about the support in the moment where the fistula happens, of course, and when we have to bring back these women and girls to their state of optimal health, but there's also what is the impact in the communities. There is stigma, there is discrimination, there is isolation. And so that's what we have to address. And the way to address that is really to tackle the community in its entirety. So talking to traditional leaders, talking to men and boys. We need to have men and boys on our side. Everywhere in our programs, and we are present in 150 countries, but particularly for this forgotten tragedy. And the other thing is that what we see with these programs, and particularly this program in Nigeria, is that women really, the survivors become advocates. So they are the ones who have a very powerful impact in the communities. And they play a sort of action of prevention in terms of awareness building, prevention in terms of sensitization, support to their peers. So that's also a very important part of this program. And I think we have almost 280 women and girls that are part of the program in Nigeria that became strong advocates in their communities. And that is, I think, one of the key factors that ensures the sustainability of the partnership. And this goes back to what you were saying at the beginning. What are the elements, what are the ingredients of a successful partnership? For sure, the sustainability. We are there together, UNFPA and UNFCU, but we also need to make sure that if we are not there, the change that we are bringing is lasting, impactful in years. The other important piece that you have seen is the economic empowerment. So there's a social empowerment, there's a component of advocacy, there's of course the reparation of fistula, of course, but also the economic empowerment goes hand in hand with the social empowerment. So Volda started this training around tailoring. There are other different trainings that we're able to offer thanks to this program. And this is something that also brings a lasting change in the community. So what we hope to achieve is really not only, of course, the well-being, the support to the direct beneficiaries of this program, but a community that really helps us making sure that this hidden tragedy does not remain a hidden tragedy. So I think that's the most sustainable type of effect that we want to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria Ressa. Such a layered and amazing and incredible approach. It really reassures us that we are working with the right partner for such a challenging issue. So we've been to Kenya, and we've talked about Nigeria. Let's come back to New York City. I would love to welcome Sarah Haynes, who's going to introduce herself and tell us more about Sanctuary and the Economic Empowerment Program. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you so much. Again, my name is Sarah Hayes. I'm the Senior Director with Economic Empowerment Programs at Sanctuary for Families. It's a pleasure to be here today to celebrate the strides that we're making on women's financial inclusion and economic empowerment. We also have a video that presents the work of Sanctuary from the client's point of view. We can go ahead and run that clip.
4 months ago, I was at the lowest point of my life. I had just left my abusive husband, and my kids and I had nowhere safe to go. That's when I called New York City's domestic violence hotline, who told me about Sanctuary for Families and their shelter services.
2 years ago, I fled violence and discrimination in my home country. After arriving in the United States, I met a guy who became my boyfriend. It was a dark time. He exploited me by selling me for sex and threatened to deport me if I didn't do what he said. Back then, I didn't even know that what he was doing to me was a crime. But with help from Sanctuary for Families, I finally understood that I had rights.
Siempre tuve grandes sueños, pero mi pareja no me dejaba estudiar o trabajar. Él quería asegurarse que yo dependiera de él para tener dinero. Cuando mi consejera en Santuario para Familias me refirió al programa de empoderamiento económico, me di cuenta de que aún estaba a tiempo de retomar el control de mi futuro.
After staying at one of Sanctuary's crisis shelters for a few weeks, we moved into their shelter at Sarah Burke House. We don't even have to leave the building to access counseling, support groups, and family activities. It's a place where we can begin to heal as a family.
I didn't know where to start, but my Sanctuary attorney helped me identify multiple legal options for my situation. She helped me find all the paperwork and made me feel safe asking for help without fear of judgment.
El programa EEP me dio la seguridad y las habilidades que necesitaba para entrar a la fuerza laboral, incluyendo clases de inglés, tecnología y entrenamiento profesional. Incluso pude seleccionar artículos de ropa formal para mi primer trabajo de oficina después de graduarme.
Today, I'm meeting my Sanctuary attorney at court for a custody proceeding. If you had told me 4 months ago that I would have a safe home and the courage to face my husband in court, I wouldn't have believed you. But here I am, resolved to build a brighter future for my family.
A few days ago, my attorney gave me a call and told me that my asylum application was approved. I still have a long road ahead of me, but I know Sanctuary will stand by me every step of the way.
Hace algunas semanas comencé a trabajar y a pesar de los desafíos, cada día me siento más segura de mí misma. Además de tener independencia y estabilidad económica, ahora siento que estoy construyendo un futuro más feliz.
It's one of my favorite videos. So Sanctuary for Families is dedicated to the safety, healing, and self-determination of victims of domestic violence and related forms of gender violence through our comprehensive services, clients and their children, to clients and their children, and through outreach and education and advocacy. We strive to create a world in which freedom from gender-based violence is a basic human right. Every year, we empower thousands of adults and children to move from fear and abuse to safety and stability. helping them transform their lives through a range of comprehensive services and advocacy. We employ 3 key strategies: direct services, outreach, training, and system change advocacy. The issue that survivors face is dynamic and complex, and that set of issues will change from survivor to survivor. And it's our belief and understanding that the solutions and supports that we're presenting at Sanctuary therefore have to meet those challenges in dynamic and holistic ways. So we do take a holistic approach, and Sanctuary offers services to clients from counseling and crisis intervention to legal services and immigration remedy to shelter, and then the department that I run, economic empowerment. So with respect to economic empowerment, we believe that that is really the only pathway to self-sufficiency for our survivors. And it's an opportunity to do meaningful work that's critical to the long-term stability and safety for those that we serve. The Economic Empowerment Programs runs a pioneering career readiness and technology training program. We also provide supports around financial inclusion and other skills building services that give participants access to the participants access to economic mobility, and it helps these participants break the cycle of poverty, homelessness, and abuse.
Thank you, Sarah. So let's get into this conversation. Thank you so much to the panelists. I hope everyone can see why we appreciate them so much and the incredible work that you're doing on the front lines of poverty every day. Let's talk a little bit more about partnerships. And Sarah, I know you talked about this. One of the things that we really admired about Sanctuary, but also all of our partners, is the fact that they really have incredible partnerships that make their work go further, to Mary Erosa's point about sustainable work. Wondering if we could talk a little bit, Sarah, I'll come back to you, because I know that your employment partnerships make a real difference in a safety plan that's very comprehensive for a survivor. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Definitely. Definitely. So as part of the program model, we connect with organizations, nonprofits, businesses all around the New York City and tri-state area. And we do a couple of things. One, we're always looking for available placements for our clients. One great thing about the program design is that oftentimes clients come out of programming as graduates fully equipped to apply for jobs in the open job market, as others would. We also do focus a lot on connecting with organizations who can come to us for essentially their own recruiting initiatives. Sometimes organizations can't promise a position, but what they can do is promise an internship. And we focus on making sure that the clients have in-demand skills that make them value assets for organizations. So in a sense, we're working in partnership with the clients to make sure that they have what it takes to jump into these organizations, demonstrate value. So we're not really depending on charity. Right? There's a value add that the clients can present, and the organizations are likely more inclined to take more interns after the fact, having already hosted one intern who is certified in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Expert Excel, and all of the many things that I can't put on my resume. So that's very, very key. I'd also say that in addition to us partnering with the organizations, we're also partnering with alumni, right? As they get placed in employment, they now are someone who can help further the empowerment opportunities for other individuals that come after them. So they're a great resource. We also, developed an affinity group, which helps us place clients in internships and organizations so that we're scaling our reach. It isn't just about the staff working in EEP, it's also about those, 100 members of the Career Advancement Network that have committed to leveraging their own networks to help clients get placed and have access to economic stability.
Thank you, Sarah. I love that. And I love that, EEP recognizes the need to put money in the hands, like all of you do, literally put money in the hands of participants as they're coming out of a situation. Because how can you be safe if you cannot afford to purchase anything for you or your children? It's really tough. With that, I'll turn to Maria Rosa if there's any partnerships you'd like to mention before we turn to Elena as well.
I'm from Italy. I always talk about ingredients in a recipe. Anyway, so I have the privilege, the opportunity of working on partnerships. I'm really passionate. I'm privileged to do this work every day. And what I think is that, well, first of all, there is an element of aligning languages. I came to the UN from the private sector. The language of the private sector is a language that is not exactly the one of the UN and the other way around. So what I learned, and I keep on learning every day when we discuss with our partners, including with UNFCU, is let's align the language. Let's align the language. Let's align the language around a common dream, but let's be pragmatic dreamers in the sense that it's good to think about actions that really have an impact in communities. We always say with my team that it is here, yes, one of our targets is having many partnerships, but what are many partnerships if we really are not able to measure the impact? So the impact in communities, the real change that we can make. So for me, the sustainability is an ingredient of the recipe. The alignment on a common purpose, which is a meaningful purpose. The third thing, I would say, really a component of visibility. I remember in my previous job, I used to work for this company that you might know, United Colors of Benetton. And the idea, one of the key ideas of that company in the very early 1980s was the social communication. So you can make the best partnership ever, but if you are not able to communicate it externally and internally, you just reach a quarter of the effect that you can have. So the third ingredient for me would be really the visibility piece. And the fourth, for sure, and because we are, as UNFPA, an organization that has a really very strong local impact. We're present in 150 countries. We work directly or with implementing partners. We work with the civil society, private sector, a number of stakeholders. But really, what we need to make sure is that that bottom-up approach is visible. We are not going to trickle down our partnerships in communities. We need to make sure that those partnerships are really co-created with the communities, for the communities, and with our partners. And so my last ingredient for a good partnership, or really a very good partnership, is really the co-creation that needs to happen with communities. To make sure that there is buy-in, and to make sure that everyone is aligned at the end around what is our common agenda of the Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals do not remain words, but they become alive in communities. Thank you.
Really powerful. Thank you so much, Maria Rosa. Those are the critical elements of partnerships that really make them sustainable. To that, Elena, I'll turn to you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think for us, our entire model is based on partnerships and capacity building. So GFW is based in New York, but we operate with local partners that are the implementers of the program, right? So, for example, in Kenya, we work with Come Together Widows and Orphans, which is a really good widow organization, and we provide technical support. We help them monitor the impact of the program, but in the end, it's CTWU, that Come Together Widows and Orphans, that are the ones that are implementing the program and are the ones that have the knowledge of what is needed in reality in Kenya. They are the ones who are in constant communication with the widows. They are the ones that are leaders in the widowhood movement in the country. So we always do that. We work to build the capacity of the organizations that we work with. So we've been building CTU's capacity to be able to implement the program with us. So it's all about the partnerships. And I think then at the local level or at the beneficiaries level, our banks are the model of partnership. This model works because the 25 widows that are part of this bank are partners for this bank, and they respect each other, and they build these connections that really work with all of the ingredients of a good partnership. And that's why the model is successful, because it's the partnerships within the widows that bring the strength to the program.
That's really powerful. Thank you so much. One thing that was talked about, and I recognize that each of your organizations serve particular populations that unfortunately face stigma in some way or the other. Thinking about the cost of that stigma in society, and I'm wondering if any of you are able to talk about how does your organization in particular deal with what may be an economic impact that stigma may have, and how does your program particularly address that? Wondering if anyone has any thoughts about that in terms of how one counters that stigma.
I think I said during my presentation, so I think I'll let the rest, but I can dig in more.
Well, thank you. But just to reiterate, I think all of us somehow touched upon it, no, at the beginning. So maybe just to reiterate that it's that stigma is the result of different issues. So the stigma is the result, for example, if you think about the problem of fistula, it's the result of inequalities, lack of access to health. It's the result of lack of economic power. It's the result of being vulnerable and being part of those categories that we call the left behind. So it's really the result of many of these variables. Said this, we notice with pleasure that increasingly the partners we work with have a perspective, a lens on inclusion in general, on inclusion and diversity, and making sure that we really leave no one behind. Fistula is just one tragic manifestation of somebody who is left behind, but there are many more. And so what we need to make sure is that stigma in all its aspects is addressed. And one of the ways to address it is also to empower economically. No? So I think all of us have a component of economic empowerment that goes really hand in hand with the social empowerment.
Yeah, no, agreed. Sarah, did you have anything you'd want to add?
I mean, you put it so wonderfully, but as I was thinking about the question, I really think it's this two-pronged approach between building awareness and also fostering empowerment for the survivor. I like to say that every opportunity to meet with an employer, they don't think it's an outreach meeting, but for me it is. And, I think at that table in that room that our clients don't always have access to, when confronted with some of the unconscious and conscious bias around survivorship, I'm ready with the answer. I had an experience once where an employer had concerns around safety, around hosting internships for our survivors, and asked, well, what do you do when the possibility of abusers coming? And I'm like, well, there are a lot of women that work here. 1 in 4 is a survivor. So I can guarantee you that there are individuals that you're employing that are suffering with these challenges, suffering from this issue, and you want to think about how your sense of how you can keep everybody else safe impacts your ability to actually support them as staff members and as individuals. So that's a big piece. And I think the more that we have survivors who are employed by organizations, the perspective around the vulnerability of this issue, like it being a justice issue, not just a women's issue, being a community issue, not just a women's issue, will expand and shift and change.
Oh, that's so powerful. Thank you for that. I'm really anxious and excited to get to the questions in the audience. Before we do that, I'm going to ask our panelists to tell me a little bit more about a challenge and something you're looking forward to working on. So I'll ask you if you can just think a little bit more about that together, something that's maybe challenging, but also exciting on the horizon. And then we'll get to the questions that our audience members may have. Sure, please, Elena, that'd be great.
I think one of our biggest challenge as an organization, and when we're talking about widows, is making it a visible problem. So I think the widowhood issue it's quite invisible. We talk about different problems affecting women, but when I talk about the specific challenges that widows face, I normally get this reaction from people saying like, wow, I had no idea. And it is a challenge, and we're trying to push and we're trying to communicate. But what I am looking forward and hopeful for is I see the change. Little by little, I see that when we hold an event on widowhood, every time we have more people, or every person you talk to, and at the CSW years ago, there was no mention at all to widows in any room. Now we're seeing that shift. Now we're seeing that it's something that people are talking about. So that is what makes us hopeful. I think it's starting to get this momentum.
I'll briefly mention one of our flagship initiatives now. So what we had identified together also with partners, private sector partners particularly, is a gap in what, I don't know if you're familiar with the ESGs, no? So the environmental, social, and governance indicators, particularly in the private sector, that have to do with all the big theme of corporate social responsibility and sustainability. But those indicators don't have criteria for measuring respect of sexual and reproductive rights in the workplace. So there's no measurement around, for example, menstrual programs, family planning counseling, prevention of sexually related diseases and cancers, prevention of gender-based violence. There is nothing. So we have been working with, and that's the challenge. If we want to really make sure that the global agenda that we call for women and girls for sexual and reproductive rights is implemented, we cannot not think about the workplace, because that's a place where tens of millions of women work. And we're not only talking about women in leadership. I'm a full supporter of women in leadership, but we have to talk about women and girls in general. No? So that's a big gap. So we came up together with a partner, Accenture, with these indicators, with these metrics, and we're now working with a coalition of UN and non-UN partners to make sure that those indicators are somehow made visible and endorsed and piloted by the private sector. So that's a challenge, but it's an enormous opportunity. If you think about women in global supply chains, we talk about almost 200 million women who are at risk of being denied their sexual and reproductive rights in the workplace, including what I was telling you. So we cannot forget that. So that's the challenge, but it's also an exciting opportunity to really make an impact. And if you want to know more, we're happy to share more information. Thank you.
So I think one development, I mean, through Sanctuary's most recent strategic plan, we've been directed in EEP to ramp up economic mobility programming. And I think that, economic mobility covers a very, very wide spectrum of need. It's very broad. But what's exciting is that we can kind of like lead this initiative being client-focused and client-informed, leaning on and leveraging the expertise that our clients are coming with to have that kind of guide what it is we provide, and everything from someone coming to us and saying, I want to be able to be more equipped to help my child with their homework, because I believe they're going to be the economic empowerment future for our family, or them wanting to, as an undocumented individual, build their own business and lean on their ability to be an entrepreneur to establish income attainment. So it's something that is like, wow, all of the opportunity, but it's also extremely exciting to be delving into this work, and we're really excited about that.
Thank you so much. Thank you all to all of our panelists. And so what questions do folks have for us? Yes, I think we have microphones that will be great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Margaret Edison. I work with National Population Commission of Nigeria. So I want to say that the three panelists, two of the issues that they present here today are natural. One can be prevented, and that's fistula. It can be prevented, and we are very grateful to UNFPA. We work very closely with UNFPA Nigeria office and global. So as we try to repair those with continence and empowering them to go back to the society, I think we will appreciate UNFPA to continue its work with the Nigerian government, the civil society, and the community to ensure that no girl marries as a girl. They should marry as women when they want to marry. When they want to start having children, nobody should coerce the girls to marry early. That's the only way, because we will continue to repair the incontinence, but we can also prevent it. So that's the request of Nigeria. And for the other two, I think we need to give education to women. When you educate a woman, knowledge is power. They will be able to stand up for their rights, whether as widow or those who are stranded and looking for help in a place like United States. Thank you.
It's all right. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm very proud to be in the midst of this conversation. My name is Catherine. I'm from Nigeria too. I don't work with the government, but I run an NGO, a very young NGO, and that's because I just now went to step it up, but I've been passionately running that from my purse. We are talking about accelerating gender equality through financial inclusion, and I've heard a lot about the work with widows, and widows are women, right? Of course. So I've heard about the girl child and fantastic work being done. I just want to ask, there is a spectrum, this bandwidth of women, of widows who are elderly. Those ones are kind of forgotten, and they make a big percentage of the women we should be including in this financial empowerment. So, and talking about shelter too, most of them are left abandoned at that stage where they can't help themselves anymore. We should be thinking about them too. And that's where my young NGO comes in. I know. So I just thought I should mention that.
Thank you so much. Just give Elena a chance. I don't know if you want to respond.
Yes, a lot of the widows we work with are older women. 2 weeks ago, I was in Kenya, for example, and I was with this widow that's 94. And she was showing me her garden and her goats, very, very proud. So she was amazingly strong. So yeah, we definitely support widows of all ages.
Thank you.
Yes.
I saw.
Yeah, thank you very much, moderator. My name is Becky Njode-Ojo. I'm from Namibia. I'm a member of parliament, but a former deputy minister of education. So my answer and my appreciation is that we are covering Africa to America. So Africa to the Americas. You know, there are also people from Latin America here who are going through the same problem. And the speaker from Nigeria just took words out of my mouth. I have written here, education, education, and education. Really. Not only to educate the girl child, as per the Beijing conference recommendation, but to educate the communities that they cannot marry their children as 10, 8 years old for fistula to take effect on them. I have lived in Nigeria. I have seen practical examples in the north. That is where it is very dominant, that these people are not only suffering, they are actually isolated as lepers. They have created colonies for them. If you have fistula, you go there, and that is where you go and stay. So it's very dehumanizing, and I'm very appreciative of your efforts that you are making but prevention is better than cure. We have to look for advocacy to make sure that these people are rescued, and you rescue them through education. Also, coming from Africa, we have been colonies of different countries, and our liberation struggle were based on, first of all, get political liberation, educate, and scale up to economic emancipation. So these are stages that you have to go through. You are free, you have education, and therefore you can access this man's world with skills. You have to be better educated than a man to do the same job for less money. So if you don't have the education, you cannot access it. But I appreciate that your effort is also looking at women in general, not necessarily the educated women. To conclude, I want to appreciate the presence of men in this meeting. I serve on the standing committee, parliamentary standing committee on gender. And that parliamentary committee is chaired by a man, and he is with me here. He's Mr. Kasuto. And it is a deliberate statement to make sure that gender issues should not be treated as women issues. Mm-hmm. We have to demystify that myth. Gender equality is a human right. And that's the way it should be approached by every one of us. And that's why I'm saying, please, men, advocate for this cause of gender equality. It's not a woman's issue. It is a man's issue. It's a human rights issue, and men should help us. You know, when they speak to men, it's better than, oh, here come the woman again talking about these women issues. So I want to thank you, but their presentation are on top of their scale, and we appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Russell? Yeah.
No, I just wanted to say, I was going to say exactly the same thing, because I've been in many meetings during CSW these days, and really I applauded the presence of the very few men, very, very few. So I think we need to find a way. We need to find a way to bring more men, because it's important. Ownership and of these issues. These are not only women's issues. So absolutely.
No, that's a critical point. Thank you so much. I know we have many other questions. We'll try to get to as many as we can. Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, specifically for Ms. Mariosa, for presenting this fantastic video. It's very less likely to hear about it in the United States. My name is Miriam. I'm from Better Life Youth Association, which is from Chad, a country that I don't hear very often in here. Better Life Youth Association, we focus more on the first 4 SDGs, which is the majority population who experience this in Chad. And we believe that no healthcare condition should be stigmatized in Chad. And in Chad, healthcare conditions like fistula, even the healthcare providers don't feel comfortable communicating about it with their patients, let alone the community members. And so also in Chad, many women tend to deliver at home due to financial restrictions, and that does not only place them at a higher risk for complications like infections, postpartum hemorrhage, and of course fistula. So my question to you: do you guys have specific interventions to reach those populations who live in rural areas? Do you guys have any interventions that are different than other populations to make sure that the healthcare that they have there not only provides a safe care but also free from shame and stigma? Thank you.
I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. Miriam. So I'll transfer this question to my colleagues who are just behind you, and they are from the technical division of UNFPA, and so they're really the experts on this. So if I may ask, please, thank you.
My name is Bridget Isiama, and I'm technical specialist for obstetric fistula and the coordinator of the global campaign to end fistula as well. And so to say the global campaign is active in 55 countries in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean, among other regions. For our obstetric fistula program, the focus has been to be able to support countries to be able to prevent and respond to the condition. There is the aspect where we really help the women and the girls to be able to overcome the fistula survivors after they have been treated to be able to live a quality of life. But what is also critical is the prevention of the condition. UNFPA supports countries in this aspect through our global midwifery program, our emergency obstetric and newborn care program, a lot of advocacy at all levels, global, regional, and subnational levels. This is critical because if we want to end obstetric fistula, and not just fistula, because with fistula comes other related morbidities as well, then there's the need to prevent the condition. We have to do that, prevent, treat, and socially reintegrate those who unfortunately have had obstetric fistula. With regards to reaching those who are in hard-to-reach areas, there are interventions that are going on with midwifery, strengthening midwifery, quality of the midwifery, emergency obstetric care, ensuring that a woman is able to reach the facility when she needs it.
Yeah.
Whilst addressing the socio-economic factors, example, prevention of harmful traditional practices such as child marriage, we know that we are not at the level yet where all countries are able to desist from such, or we're not having child marriage in all countries. If a girl unfortunately has obstetric, is into a child marriage,
yeah,
and she gets pregnant, is she able to get to the facility or get the treatment she needs when she gets pregnant? Because we have to look at both sides.
Yeah.
So this is the holistic approach that UNFPA takes in addressing obstetric fistula, in addressing morbidities that are associated with childbirth.
Thank you.
Our focus has been to use a holistic approach where we're looking at obstetric fistula, using obstetric fistula as an entry point to highlight the fact that fistula is just a tip of the iceberg. There is more to be done in quality of care to ensure that we are getting the quality of the care that's needed. The woman or girl is able to reach the services that they are supposed to have, and also to have the understanding and empowerment that you can get there, or you have these services available and you can go there and get it. So just
thank you.
Thank you, Birgit. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Unfortunately, as much as we could spend the rest of the afternoon talking about this, we are out of time. I just wanted to thank my panelists. I also want to acknowledge our board member who's sitting here to my right, Jody Police, who's just joined us. But thank you so much to our expert panelists for joining us today. We really appreciate you and the work that your organizations do. And thank you so much. Thank you to all of you for joining us.